Hey everybody, it's me, Jon Caspian. I am joined by Marshall Jones. Marshall, how you doing? Awesome. We actually, I'm in Cincinnati now, and you're about 2.5 hours north, right? Oh, 3.5. Okay. If you drive like my dad does in Atlanta, then you can get there in probably 2.5. My dad, especially back in the 70s or so, he would drive 90 miles an hour, no problem, whatever. Have fun. I wanted to talk to you today about your experiences as a game designer, and then we'll segue into the fact that your store also is very similar to Giga-Bites in that it does uh, cafe type stuff as well. But why don't we go ahead and start with how did you originally get into game design when you were younger?
Played as Robotech in high school, and I met a friend of mine. My best friend got me into playing Warhammer, um, and he's actually the one who got me into Warzone as well. I was working at a local game store here, and the target rulebook had come out for Warzone,
Mm-hmm.
and he looked it up, and we were kind of fed up with a lot of stuff that had been going on with 40K and price hikes and things like that. We were poor college students, so we were looking for something different. Um, he read the rule book, brought it back, and said, "We got to play this game." And we picked up some starting armies. I picked up Brotherhood. He picked up Bauhaus, and we just had a blast with it. We became target freelancers back in the day. Uh, Went with those guys, Bob Watts, and those guys down to Origins in like
Mm-hmm.
'95, I think. Hung out with them, demoed the games. And then fast forward to now, a couple of years ago, the Protos did the Kickstarter, and I and a couple of friends backed it, and I got to know those guys online, and the like Yarrick and Michael and Mark, and they had asked one of them had asked me because I had written some 40K short stories back in the day and won some awards on Librarium Imperium or something like that for one of them, and they had asked me, "So when are you going to write some Warzone stories?" And I said, "Whenever the new book comes out, and I can get familiar with the new fluff." And so I proofread for them. I proofread the original Brotherhood book, "The Guardian of Blood Air," not my fault. Um,
Hmm.
which is why in the new book they're called the Fear Elite Guard because they already had a job and they just got renamed and changed a little bit. So we changed them back. Some of the things between 1.0 and 2.0 got changed because we wanted to bring it more in line, back in line with original Mutant Chronicles Warzone.
Oh, cool.
Um,
Awesome.
yeah. So myself and Rob Alderman were asked to do the Imperial book in 1.0, and so we did that. I did about half, he did about half, and then with other people doing things here and there. From what I remember, it might be a different ratio. I don't know, but I remember writing a lot of it. Uh, Morton, Morton Oakenfist is my guy. A couple others, and then we did Heroes of the Solar System, and uh,
That was cool.
it was the system for that was vastly different than what I had originally written up for it.
Hmm.
This is so I'd been writing background for the Protos games. By the time Heroes of the Solar System came out, I was actually doing rules and working on actual rule systems for the game. I'm primarily like a background writer. I like doing fluff pieces, short stories. There was an actual novel I got 7 chapters of it written. One day, maybe who knows? Um, and then I split from that team and worked on AVP. This one here. Oops, that's the end. And then uh, that was for The Hunt Begins. I did all the background for that. And then by the time Unleashed was coming out, 1.0 was at its end, and we wanted to wait. The reason the book itself, the Unleashed book, got delayed was because we wanted it to match up with 2.0. and we were still working on 2.0. So we had to wait until we were done with the Warzone 2.0 rules. And then once that was done, all we did was create a couple more factions and balance those, which actually is a lot of work to do. And put them all out, and here we are. And we're working on a new expansion right now.
Ooh, I would pick your brain, but I'm sure there's some NDAs involved with that, right?
There are, but we might be able to talk about that a little later.
Ooh, that'd be great. Haha, that's awesome. So, what are the factions that you added?
So I rewrote the Brotherhood. So what we did was some of the storyline didn't jive for me. Having went back and read Mutant Chronicles, when in prep for 2.0, went back and read a lot of Mutant Chronicles stuff because I loved it back in the day. It was one of my favorite games, and I wanted to get back to that gritty. Eric had asked me, we want Warzone to get back to this, gritty feel to it, where a lot of hope has been lost and things like that. And I said, okay, this is how I came back to Warzone from AVP. I said, okay, first thing, can I get rid of the Guardian Oblate? And he said, absolutely. I said, I don't want to get rid of the models. They're fantastic. Let's just change them to what they should be. And that's the Fury Elite Guard. So Fury Elite in the past were very lightly armored. So I also asked him, hey, so is it all right with you guys and with Paradox, which is now Cabinet, if I fast forward us 5 years? And he said, absolutely, let's do it. It'll give the player something new. They had, a little bit of extra fluff, and we can build on that. And I said, all right. So I picked a city, the most defended one in the solar system, and that's Volksburg, and had Alakai, and that's on Venus, and just had Alakai just hammer it, and then he kills the number 2 underneath Hamilcar, the Lord Inquisitor guy, the Inquisitor Majoris, number 2 on the chain in the second directorate, and then just leaves, and nobody knows why. I mean, I do, but because he's Alakai,
right?
I think it's more of a look what I did to your city. If I can do this anywhere, if I can do this here, I can do this anywhere. And that kind of made all the corporations backpedal and become very defensive and very building up their war machine again. I mean, they're still in the second corporate war, but it almost felt like it was kind of like a Cold War. I mean, just little skirmishes here and there. Now I want more, bigger battles, more, bigger changes, things like maybe cities being lost in the future to the Legion, or changing hands, between corporations.
Well, that's cool. Yeah, actually, someone on Facebook earlier had said that they were interested in more like future lore, like not just like things that happened in the past, but things that are gonna happen. And that's awesome that you're doing that.
Yeah, it's I love that idea. I like seeing people's stories, as long as it kind of jives with Mutant Chronicles and the background and stays true to it. Yeah, absolutely. I love it when people make different things. I've included characters in the some of the short stories that people have written. It's funny. One of our local players fell in love with Terrence and used him to jump off buildings at people. So when I was writing 2.0, I said, you know what? I'm going to add a little thing in for him, and that's why he has those shock absorbers in his legs.
That's funny. Wow. No, that's cool. That's cool. I've been thinking about doing like cinematic things with my set, but I might have to hire someone to do some better painting. When I do like the videography or the photography and stuff, it ends up being really, really close, which my painting personally is very much on the tabletop scale because I haven't been doing it for too long. But I'm definitely interested in making that happen if we can get like 10 to 15,000 points worth of models.
Oh yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure. And things like things happening on Mars and different kind of planets would be definitely pretty fun. One thing that Chris Smith says from Atlanta, during the Kickstarter era in 1.0, were you an employee or a volunteer?
I have actually never been an employee of Protos. I've always been a freelancer. Sometimes, I mean, I've been a big advocate for Protos. I also happen to know, because of my position, a lot of stuff that's gone behind the scenes, which I don't I made a New Year's resolution last year to not get in internet fights very often with people, and it's hard when people talk down about your work. But I've let a lot of that go. Uh, I've never tried to come off as saying I wasn't a Protoss employee or anything like that. But having knowing what goes on in the background, I've had a lot more patience with them, I guess, than some of the backers and things like that. And I absolutely understand people's frustration. I mean, I don't even. I'm a backer as well. I backed Warzone. I backed AVP, and I still don't have all of my AVP. I have most of it, but they've offered a lot of different fixes for that. Some people don't like it, but it is what it is. And but no, I've never actually been an employee.
Huh. Okay. What was some of your, like, as a designer, when you were designing the system? Were you starting from scratch with a lot of it, or were you kind of just modifying things?
So if you open up the 1.0 rulebook and put it next to the 2.0, there are a lot of similarities. But what we really had to do, what my team did, and we started this 8 months before we even went into beta testing. We really just kind of had to write it. We kept some stuff, but we wrote a lot of it from the ground up. Like, we got rid of a lot of the special attacks based on base size because we felt that it bogged the game down, that it was slow, nobody was using it. And if we wanted to use stuff like that, we could build them into units going forward. I don't know if we actually have used some of those. I think we have, but like Stomp and Slash and stuff like that. But a lot of those abilities weren't being used, and 1.0 was a great system, but it was slow. People, that was the biggest complaint about it. We got from feedback. We got a lot of feedback from players too, and the overwhelming suggestion was we wanted to be faster. So my first thing I said to my team was, we got to cut a lot of the stuff out. We got to make it faster, and that's what we sat down to do.
That's cool. Okay. Like, what was that? What were some of the things you, like, took out in big chunks?
Like I said, a lot of units had a lot of very similar rules. Like, if you look in the ability lists, and it's funny to say that our units don't have a lot of abilities. They do, but they're more universal abilities. Once you've played the game a few times, you know what Critical Force does. You know what Discord does. You know what those, Infiltrate does, or you should. But we wanted to go to more of a lot of more games were going to that universal system. I know, like Mantic, when they put out Dead Zone, used a lot more universal rules. So we came up with our generic abilities list, and we've built on that. Some units still have their own unique feel, but others, like you look at the Hatamoto, and they've just got a couple of abilities, and they really don't need anything else. I mean, some people might argue that, but all in all, I think units like that are very strong, and they're easy to learn, and they're a good building block, which is why they're troops. We also removed, like I said, the special attacks. We just felt that nobody was using those. And we wanted to universalize a lot of things like base sizes, like what is a small base size, what is a medium, what is a large, what is that, and what can you do with those. We just tried to universalize everything we could to make the game faster.
Nice. How do you go about, like, balancing from the get go? Like, what? How does that work?
That's a great question. We argue a lot.
Right.
My dev team is great. We don't always see eye to eye, and there is no science to computing points, and that's why some things are stronger than others. I mean, just for example, let's say we have a new unit that can teleport across the board. Oh, how many points is that? We've never done that before. We have to play test it and it's in such a small vacuum. Each of our devs has playtest groups that they have with their local groups. But that still doesn't catch everything. We just released 2.3, and that was something that I had asked Andreas to kind of to head up, and he and the team did a fantastic job with that. Did we catch everything again? No, probably. Somebody will break something somewhere, or something new got broken.
Yep.
But we're always trying to tighten the rules. We try to listen to community feedback. And I guess the best question with that is when do you release it? You have to release it at some point. There's always going to be something that got missed. Hell, I think there's stuff this week that people have gone, oh, well, this changed, this doesn't work, or this is missed on. How did you guys miss this? Well, we're, half a dozen, 2 dozen, a dozen people on this team. We're going to miss stuff. And that was something I would ask people to take into consideration with that. So how do we balance stuff? A lot of work, a lot of play testing, and a lot of arguing and going back and forth.
When you first were creating all the different unit types and whatnot, I know you had some that are already in play, I guess from 1.0 you already have troops, heavy infantry, stuff like that. I'm thinking capital right now. How do you decide how things work in the army, like how they take up a heavy slot and what that purpose of that is?
That's another good question. There are ideas that we all have. Everyone wants to see their favorite unit get redone. I don't play Bauhaus. I never have, but I would love to see the Jaegers. That's not to say they're coming, but I would love to see the Jaegers. But what slot do they fill? Are they, fast? Are they, are they a fast support unit? Are they a troop unit? Is there a hero that we can make for them that makes them into troops? What happens if we make them into troops? Really what it comes down to is let's delve into the expansion a little bit. We look at 1.0 and we go, the 2.0, the book, and we go, what now are units, are armies missing? And the real question of what always comes back is really nothing. All the army lists are pretty solid, but we don't want to just leave that as it. So we want to give people more choices, more heroes, more troops, more support, some new vehicles. I know for a while last year, Protoss did Vehicle Geddon, which was cool because there are actually 2 vehicles that have not been released yet. They don't have models yet. I think they were being worked on. They do have rules, so you will see them in Kirkwood. And I'm not really breaking an NDA here because I have kind of posted them up. One is the Death Angel for the Brotherhood, and the other one is the Rattlesnake for Capital. And that is something, which I don't think anybody has actually seen the Rattlesnake. But if you flip through some of the old source books, you'll see what it looks like.
Okay.
It's got some pretty cool rules to it. They synergize with Sea Lions. And what we try to do with a lot of the more newer things, like the vehicles, let's take the Wolfclaw. We wanted to look at old units and go, who could benefit from this? Who doesn't get used that much? Another one was the best one was the Nova. So what does the Nova do? And how can we work it in? Well, we're like, Mirrormen aren't really used a whole lot. What if we give them synergy with the Mirrormen and make them better? So, and that's what an expansion, in my opinion, should do, is making the original stuff, that doesn't get used a lot, better.
Nice. Okay. You were mentioning an expansion in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about that?
Sure. A little bit.
Okay, not too much, of course.
Right. So it's something I've been working on and off for about 6-7 months. I hadn't really let the team in on it until fairly recently. They were working on 2.3, and there was a kind of a lull in development. Protoss had moved on to some other things. They are a sister company with Archon, so their resources are kind of split, I guess. I don't know. I don't know the behind the scenes thing. I can only guess. But so Warzone, I had just sat down and just went, you know what? We need some new stuff. We need an expansion. And Yerrick had asked me for about 6 vehicles rules, so I gave him the Emancipator, the Nova, the Wolfclaw. There was one more, and then the Death Angel and the Rattlesnake. So just to kind of do that, and
Capital Bully.
Oh yes, that was it. The Bauhaus Bully.
Bauhaus Bully, yeah.
Yeah, which doubles as a capital bully.
Right.
So those were the 6 vehicles that we did, and so with the new one, I said, well, how do we want to approach the expansion? Do we want to do like the old, at war books? And it was kind of like, yeah, we should do that. We should include stuff for every army, because unlike some other companies that just do an army book for one whole faction, it's like, well, that's great. I don't play Imperial. I play Bauhaus. When do I get the Bauhaus book? Well, that can take some time. Development takes time. Writing background stories takes forever to get it right. So we wanted to include something for everybody. One thing it's going to have, and this was the very first thing I started on, was the HOTS. The Heroes of the Solar System 2.0 will be in it.
Really?
Yeah, that was my first thing that I wrote up, because I did the first one, which then got changed quite a bit from my original vision. But I wanted to making characters. So it's not like the old one where you can modify stats and modify weapons. That's just too long, and people won't. It'll slow things down, and it's really not tournament oriented. But tournament organizers can decide to allow it. It won't break the system. Really, the way it works is each type of character. Let's say you take a Brotherhood trooper, you want to turn him into a character. You can take him, add a different weapon to him for a different cost, add maybe another ability or something like that, and maybe add a wound or do something to him. Oh no! So you make him a character. He gains certain stats, and that's universal. And there's tier 1, tier 2. Tier 1s are typically troops like Bauhaus Hussars. Tier 2s are things like a Mortificator, most supports, stuff like that. Tier 3 is things that already have heroes. Stuff like I want to make a Master Pathfinder, my own Master Pathfinder. They don't gain any bonuses in stats or anything like that, but you can give them different equipment. So that speaks to the conversion people. Or I know Didgeridoo Douglas posted a conversion for a Cybertronic sniper a couple days ago, and it looked great. But he can actually make that guy his Major O'Neill guy. Yeah. And then vehicle commanders is going to be a thing as well. That goes way back. That goes back to, there was originally in 1.0 there was an expansion called Armored Commander or something like that. I have the initial framework for it, but that ended up getting scrapped because the old we changed to 2.0 and everything changed. But it left the idea of, could we do vehicle commanders? And yeah, actually we can. So it'll be cool to see like a Bauhaus general in a Grizzly, or a Kodiak or something leading your army.
That's interesting, because I know that in the current, I don't know if it's, I guess, meta, but vehicles aren't really used a whole lot. I would love to see them used more often.
Me too, because they're great models. I'd love to see like more Giga-Mechs on the table, or I keep looking over because that's where our Warzone stuff is. Just like any of those things would be great to see, like a Leviathan commander.
Why do you think they're not really used right now?
I don't know. We've tried to make them more useful. Originally, the vehicle started out, like the big vehicle started out as heavy slot in 1.0, and that wasn't very viable because nobody played with the heavy OCC.
Okay.
And Protoss had asked us when we did 2.0, hey, what can we do with these vehicles? Can we make them more attractive to players to play with. And I said, yeah, let me take a look at it. So I said, what if we make them light vehicles as well, like a different version? You could double up on the model, and it's just a different stat line. And so that's how the light heavies got born.
Okay, cool. Good to know.
Some of them were still too expensive, and we've tweaked them. And I think with 2.3, they're actually fairly cheap for what they are. Um,
I was playing against a Grizzly versus a local player here in Cincinnati, and that thing was tough.
yeah, yeah, it is.
Surprisingly tough.
The biggest problem was tanks originally. We had to errata that. We fixed it in 2.2. Tanks could not defend themselves against people on the ground. So they like in hand.
Hmm.
So we had to fix it where they're just not getting auto hit. You still have to actually hit the tank.
Gotcha.
Um, yeah, and that was a big fix. I think it fixed a lot of things. But I don't know. Some might argue with me. I'm not sure on that.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, ultimately, I think when I look, I think one discussion on the big group, the Warzone group, was that a lot of the anti-vehicle stuff isn't really very strong. I know you changed that for 2.3 for like the Huey missile launchers and stuff, right? Like you
mhm.
pumped them up a little bit, but before you would have like some anti-vehicle stuff is crazy good. I want to say it was one of the Bauhaus ones that hit me for like I don't know 26 strength or something.
Mhm.
It was just crazy high, but a lot of this stuff tends to be like strength 12 to 16, which still means your vehicle's rolling on tins and down.
Yeah. When I originally built the vehicle rules for when we changed over from AVV, that was another big change. Was vehicles in 1.0 had AVV. We wanted to make it more homogenized, where every weapon could has a theoretical chance of hurting the vehicle.
Hmm.
So we just gave them like people stats, infantry stats, and just made them tougher. I wanted a lot of vehicles, unless they were getting hit by some serious weaponry, to just kind of shrug off
Hmm.
massed ranks of uh, rifle fire, but have a couple that rolled natural ones just kind of get through, like it shot a tank, or it shot through a slit in the thing and hit the driver or the gunner or something like that.
Uh-huh.
That's what lucky hits are. Um, but we still wanted them to feel like a vehicle. Maybe we overdid it, which is why we've had to go back and redesign them over the various iterations of 2.0. But I think with 2.3, I think they work pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the last time I played was 2.2. 2.3 is what, 2 days ago released?
Couple days this past week.
Yeah, I don't know when we'll see the full war book, but I think having the auto changes is pretty good.
Soon, as far as I know, on the back end, they're going through some changes.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, our formatter went on to bigger and better pastures, and they're working in a new person to work on that. So
Gotcha.
it was kind of in the middle of the transition, so of us finishing 2.3 and getting that all done. And adding all those to the rule book is actually very time consuming, because they have to do that, send it to the team, and usually I would go through it, redline stuff that was wrong, send it to the team itself, have them go through it, them send it back to me, and then I would send it back. They would make the changes, send it back to me for an okay. That's how this is the process. This is
Yeah.
it's a long, just to make sure that we invariably even miss stuff on that.
Yep.
So it's a long, involved process. But the errata itself is out. And so people can play with it right now. But the war book is coming. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah, I'm doing a quick shout out to Chris Smith, who's making the Battle Scribe files. He's updating
That's
those to 2.3
fantastic.
right now. He's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah, so you can build. I know I built my entire capital force in like 2 minutes. Um, Gosh, what was the next? I was just thinking about something before I started thinking about that. Oh, in terms of like future iterations, how do you decide when it's like 2.2 to 2.3 to or 2.4, or if it's like 2.3.1? How do you decide those?
So we've been trying to do an errata every 6 months. Um, Originally, it was we were going to do one every year. But I think some things right off the bat were found to be broken as found by a lot of like more hardcore tournament players.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get a lot of feedback from is people who, play it like a sport. So those people came back and said these are really broken. When you like the visionaries, that's a constant source of headache of trying to make them balanced. um, uh, so we collate everything. 2.1 came out pretty fast. That was basically a lot of hot fixes that we just threw together and tried to put it out for the tournament scene to be able to, do a lot of fixes. 2.2 came out about 6 to 8 months later, and that was kind of community driven as well. We had asked you guys, hey, what are you finding? And we made Andrea's made a big long post, had a post where we had tons of feedback, kind of like for 2.3. And we took all of that and we took them off the forums and various other places we find it. And then we sit down and go, what is broken, what needs to be fixed, and what is negligible or just very situational.
Overly situational
things,
right?
Situational things, we don't usually change a lot of that because we've run into things like where somebody has tried to change the meaning of a rule just by adding an apostrophe or something like that. And we're like, come on, guys, really, just read the rule. But a lot of that is collated. We try to take as much data, which is why it takes a while for our various iterations for an errata to become basically go to the public.
Gotcha. Huh. Someone asked here, Ronan says, is Warzone still in 2.0? Is there going to be a 3.0 soon? No.
A 3.0? No.
Yeah, no.
No, not at all.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. He's just asking, he wants to check before buying the rule book. I would download the rule book from the Protoss website.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you can get the background material out of that. I think that's the actual corporate war book. Or I'm sorry, that's the corporate
rule
guide,
book?
little one. The big one here, that's where you get, and for me, the background of a game is a big deal. That is, yeah, that's what draws me. I never got into some of the other war games because the models are great looking or something like that, but the background just didn't grab me. So Warzone, if you want to know more about Warzone, especially Resurrection, the big book is the way to go. And then download the errata book from the website, and you're good. You've got everything you need.
That's awesome. Chris Smith says he is watching this while doing his final double checks on the 2.3 Battlescribe. Awesome.
Great.
That's great. And Andy Lukovic says, when we see some more of the classic units, like Capital Sunset Strikers comes to mind.
I would love to do the Sunset Strikers. I like those guys. Will we see them in Kirkwood? Probably not, because so back to expansions. I did want to keep things more planet-based. So the next one is called Kirkwood. It's probably going to be like Kirkwood, War Zones of Mars, or something like that. It's more. There are some generic units that are used all over the solar system, and some ones that have been on Mars, and some people that are specifically on Mars. One of the new formations. So we'll see new formations, units. One I'll talk about a little bit is Hamilcar Strike Force. So if you piece together the background, through 1.0 and especially 2.0, Inquisitor Hamilcar led a strike force of Doom Troopers and Brotherhood troops into the citadel of Seropolis and destroyed it. But nobody really knows a lot of the what happened there, like the background, what the units were composed of. So I have put together a strike force for them, which is a combined force of Brotherhood. Let's see, it's Brotherhood, a little Mishima, and a little Capital, with some Doom Troopers. Doom Trooper teams. Now the teams are immutable. It's more of a historical kind of thing, just like the Doom Trooper team of Isaac Alfreds and Sheila McGregor. They are a Doom Trooper team you can take in the Strike Force. You can't split them up. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got some Brotherhood, some Mishima, some Capital, and some vehicles. Just kind of adding into it to make it a more viable list. It's just a fun, it's not meant for tournament play or anything like that. It's just a fun faction kind of thing you can do with some of the extra, like, let's say you play Brotherhood and Mishima, you can play both, or Brotherhood, and you said Brotherhood and Capital?
Yep.
So you can bring Brotherhood Troopers and the Alliance or something like that.
That's cool. Wow, that's awesome. Getting my gears going here. That's so cool. No, I love Inquisitors. I don't know, something about the models and the whole idea of them seems amazing. And I want to do like a pure Inquisitor force.
Yeah.
Not sure how that would actually look like, but
Inquisitors, Hero Inquisitors. Bring, I think Hamilcar can bring Inquisitors as troops, and you bring them as support, and then bring a Death Angel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
With Frederick, I think, is an Inquisitor as well.
You got Inquisitor Majoris. That'd be a third Inquisitor. And is there any other Inquisitors that are characters?
Nicodemus, but I haven't decided if we're going to do him anytime soon. Hamilcar kind of fits his spot now, I think. I always played Nick back in the day, back when I had my Brotherhood, but he's iconic. But I think with Resurrection, I'm not sure there's a place for Nicodemus. I mean, time will tell.
The Brotherhood vehicle you said, is that a tank or is that?
So, if you look at the old one, it's this little go-kart with an HMG on the front and a statue of the Cardinal on the back. It's terrible. People have posted pictures of it recently. It's terrible. So, and I mentioned Volksburg earlier, which is where, so the Fury Elite Guard used to wear robes, and that was it. After Volksburg, things changed, and the Grandmaster of the Fury Elite Guard said, no more, go get the heavy armor. So they have this big bad, heavy Guardiano, their Guardian armor, which is what the Fury Elites wear. And I would like to see a weapons pack for those guys where they can actually use their battle swords and their shields. But along those lines, he looked at all the stuff in the Brotherhood and went, "This is silly. Why did we do this? Go back to engineering, go back to the Second Directorate, have these guys redesign this stuff, go back to our engineers and give me new vehicles." So they took the Death Angel and they beefed it out. And the idea in the back of my head is kind of like a Batman tumbler with a pair of light machine guns in the front of it, crewed by 2 Inquisitors, one driving, one in the turret with a heavy machine gun, and may or may not want to add a statue on the back because the Cardinal is always watching.
Right. Ever presence. That's
yeah.
funny.
But it's more of a.
And he also says, could we see some pure Cartel Doom Trooper armies in the future?
Cartel's tough to do. I don't know if I have them in here, but I don't know if they're going to make it into Kirkwood, but I wrote up stuff for Cartel. I see the Cartel kind of like a violent version of the UN.
That's funny.
I mean, they've got their peacekeeping force, which is kind of drawn from various things, various corporations, but I don't know. Cartel's hard to do just themselves without being too generic. And they got a couple of characters and stuff like that, but really, you're looking at one of the people with Doom Trooper as a leader. Then, yeah, I don't know. With Cybertronic and Mishima kind of turning their backs on it, I don't know. So that's the other thing is pushing the fluff forward. Cybertronic and Mishima had always kind of flirted on the back end. After Volksburg and after some things of Cybertronic kind of getting pushed out, they made a deal with Mishima, who is one of the big three, to have a formal, trade alliance. So, and it's the cartel did not like that, but in the end, the both corporations said, "What are you going to do about it?" So,
Right.
and so those two are now united, more or less. There's as much as corporations in the far dark future can be. So, hint, there could be a formation for those guys too.
That's pretty cool. That's interesting.
Well, Nozaki, their leader,
Uh-huh.
basically, who's kind of taking everything over, is very pro Cybertronic.
Yeah. Huh. How about Ilian? What's the future of that?
Ilian, I have been waiting for Ilian to come out since I wrote it. So I wrote using background information that I found. A lot of the stuff Ilian didn't have much at all. Having even had a source book back in the old 1.0 role playing days, there's still not a lot. So Cruzada's my girl. I cannot wait to see that model. They decided to go with the artwork. I've seen the render. They decided to go with the artwork from the black and white artwork, not the cover of the book artwork. Maybe when we decide to do some more Ascendant figures, maybe the one on the cover will end up being a thing. But for now, I love the idea of her just standing. She was the Madam Queen of the solar system, but one day just decided she took a leave of absence, and that was to help lead her mistress's armies in conquering the galaxy or conquering the solar system. I haven't seen anything for Balcazar, but I really want to because the guy is great looking. His Michael Palachuk did the art for him, I believe, and that's in the book, and he looks great. And when I wrote up they didn't have a lot. They really just had Triangle Templars, Triangle Templars, and a couple of other little things, Children of Ilion,
Children, yeah.
and some other things here and there. So I was like, they need some hard hitters. So I thought up the Vanguard, the Temple Vanguard. These are the guys, because Ilion doesn't have a whole lot of temples. These are the guys that guard the few temples she has.
Huh. Okay.
So they were meant to be real badasses. And then, of course, the leader of all of them was its first human recruit, and the story of that's in there as well, I believe, or it's floating around somewhere. I think it's in the book.
Okay. I
He
don't think
was
I've actually read the Ilian entry.
surprise. There's an imperial. It was an imperial guy.
That's cool. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Someone says just jumped in. Is there a plan for other apostles? I was just gonna ask that.
Yes. It's funny that you asked that. I actually had the files, and I lost my old laptop. I try to keep everything on Dropbox, so if I lose something, it doesn't go away. But something happened, and something got deleted, and the 3 apostles that I was working on, all the stuff I had was gone. So I have to rebuild it from scratch.
Oh man.
Luckily, it wasn't that much. It was really just kind of the army rules for them, like how Ilian, Algaroth has, Necrotech and, just the generic rules. I had those for Moige, Semi, and Demognogus as well.
Is Semi? Which one's the rotted one?
That's Demognogus.
Okay. What would that look like? Like his
Right.
rules?
I'm trying to remember. The easiest one is Moige because almost all of his guys have, instead of Necrotech, they have Dissension. So getting near his Screaming Legionnaires causes you to lose your willpower.
Interesting. That's easy. Yeah. So there's that one. What's the third one?
I think Demognogus, if you got near his people, they lowered your con.
That makes sense.
Which could be really detrimental, especially if they have like gas weapons or something.
Oh man. Ooh, that'd be brutal.
Yeah.
Con
and then
penalties on then. Oof.
Semi is the Lord of Spite and like Insurrection. So his guys deal more with probably screwing around with your leadership and really messing around with morale.
That makes sense, and maybe turning like models.
Yeah,
that's cool.
That would be really cool.
Now, could you? I know that the models that are in any given army, so let's say Algaroth models, they can't really be taken into other ones unless it's like specified. But I don't know if like for 2.4 or 2.5 you could include the new Dark Legion armies, but then allow the older models like the Algroth models be used. I don't even know if that would work.
What do you mean?
Like if I've got my Algroth army, and like you
Mhm.
release the new like Dimnagus, army, and you're like, oh well, how do I play it? Let's just take over some of your Algroth stuff and try it out.
So, um, like allying with the apostles, I've already when I did Ilion, if you look, there's actually a chart, I think, in
Yeah.
the Legion books. I left space in there for the other three as well.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Thinking ahead, that you will be able to ally stuff like Ilion. Trying to find. I got the book right here. There we are. So if you look, like Demnogonus, Moaje, and Semi all have blank lines in that data sheet under Dark Legion Algoroth. Those will get filled in with stuff as we go.
Chris asks, how do you pronounce Mawaji?
I've always pronounced it Moaje.
That's easy.
Yeah, I played Moaje's forces way back in the old days. That was my Dark Legion army.
Nice.
Whether I'm pronouncing it right or not, I have no idea.
It's
I
a heck
still
of it's a heck of a spelling. Muawijhe.
So in college, I always pronounced this guy Demonogus, but it's actually pronounced Demnogonus.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Demnogonus.
Demnogonus.
Yep.
That's a little bit of a tongue twister.
Yeah.
Jarek, there won't be a 3.0. We said that earlier if you didn't hear that, but
One of the, and I've always called them Razides, not Razides.
yeah. Oh, Chris and I talked at length, probably for over an hour, just on the topic of the exact pronunciation. I used to say Razides,
It's
but I kind
Razide.
of like Razides. It's fine,
I'm pretty sure it's Razide. At least that's what I call it.
Right. I don't know. I mean, we've literally heard from I think I've seen like 8 different pronunciations, which I'm
Yeah.
not sure how, but we've gotten into it, especially with folks who are not necessarily native English speakers, so they give a different perspective on it. But I don't know. Pronounce it how you want, but they're brutal
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Yeah. How do you deal with? I know we got a couple more minutes here, probably. How do you deal with like some of the feedback when people like give you, "Hey, this doesn't work so well," or this is not optimal, or whatever? How do you deal with that in terms of your process?
Uh, I would say back in the old days, not well, and no one likes having their stuff critiqued. And with the advent of social media, the way it is, and social platforms, people can reach out instantly. I would like to point out that please don't message me. I am not. I used to get a dozen or 2 dozen texts a day from people asking questions. All I'll end up doing is referring you to the 2.0 errata or 2.3. Which I actually did not do a whole lot on. That was purely Andreas and the team. So big shout out to those guys for fantastic work they did on it. When it came down to it, I said I could work on 2.3. I can keep working on erratas, but we'll never get the expansion done. It'll never be done. So I'm going to task you guys with doing the errata, and they did a great job of it. And I've been working on the expansion.
That's awesome. I know, given it's a smaller game, you don't have the resources of GW with their dozens
Right.
of people working on things.
But how do we handle it? Now we take that feedback and we ask in our group. We're like, so and so brought this up. Something came up with game table edges or something like that. And really, we go back and we look in the rule book to see if it's actually there.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, we'll post, hey, it's on this page. This is how it's read. And inevitably we'll get people that go, well, I don't agree with that. And it's like, well, this is coming from the actual development team. So, I mean,
Right.
I don't know what more official you can get.
Mm-hmm.
But, and if it's a real problem, then we'll note it down and we set it on our watch list for the next set of errata. Obviously just putting up a Facebook post and saying, this is how it works. Well, that can get buried after a week. I mean, that'll be buried like way down the scroll, so you'll never find it. And if it's in a thread,
Mm-hmm.
you'll just never find it. So in the end, we try to note it down and If it's a real problem, then we fix it in the next errata.
Let's
Speaking
see.
of errata,
Someone asked if you'll be at
this guy,
Gen Con.
this guy right here is getting an errata at some point. I've been working on that for a while as well.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. AVP has not been forgotten. I've also been working on that. Whether or not it ever comes out, I don't know. But the mercs there's going to be a fourth army list called the Mercenaries. We felt that fit very well with the AVP feel.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Rob, your stand, the corporate spy fits kind of into them. Very, very low morale, but they're led by a real badass, merc captain who keeps them all in line. Anyway, I'm sorry, your question.
Oh, Jarek was asking if going to Gen Con.
So having opened my own store, that doesn't leave a lot of time for doing things like that anymore. I am signed up for a retailer badge for Gen Con. I would like to go for at least a day or two. Last year we only went for one day, and anybody who's been to Gen Con can tell you that doing Gen Con on one day is very hard. I was at the Protos booth for a couple of hours last year, talking to fans, discussing things. We rolled out the APC for AVP, which is a great model.
Oh, great.
I actually don't own one. I really need to get one. I have a drop ship, but I don't have an actual APC
the
myself.
Inside the APC is awesome.
Yeah, I got two of them on my shelf, but I don't actually own one. But I am planning on going at least for a little bit. Maybe.
I will be there, and I think Chris Smith. I think we're going to be running the tournaments.
Yeah, I know in the past Chris Thur had run tournaments, and I hung out there and talked shop with those guys. Tom Kiley, rest in peace, he ran a couple years ago. He ran a big mega battle kind of thing against one of the old Grizzly models, the real big ones.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was a great time. But that's great that we're going to have some presence at Gen Con.
Nice. Comments on Facebook can be difficult when not everyone knows who is on the dev team. Yeah, no, that makes sense, Chris. Yeah, so if anyone has any other questions as we wrap up here, this is a very insightful talk for me. I know that getting some information from your perspective and knowing some of the process and everything, especially like how a game is developed and the whole process, just it gives me a real understanding that yes, development time, we know that for a lot of things 2 years is nothing for a movie, right? But
right.
A game is also substantial, especially when the corporate rulebook is 300 something pages.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of that is with the fluff and the lore that you've written.
It's 470 pages, or right. 61 pages.
Right, and so just one thing can be a mistake in there, and then the one person who that's a big deal to, they're going to make it known,
Right.
It's a tough job. I don't envy you for that. And then Andy says, thank you for continuing your work on it. No, we appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, guys. Thanks for playing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the big thing. Y'all keep posting battle reports, keep posting your thoughts on the game, I'm definitely always enjoy seeing the battle reports and the interesting situations people get themselves into utilizing the rules. Because for me, like with, I don't know, if I'm thinking of Warhammer 40K, you've got your generic rules like the 9-inch deep strike thing, and it's always the same, right? And it didn't used to be more complicated in 7th edition. Yeah. I understand them trying to simplify, but I do enjoy having a game like Warzone, which is a little chunkier.
And we get thanks for that, and we also get critiques on that it's too involved. But it's really just trying to, at the end of the day, it's what are we happy with, and what are the people who play the game happy with. Right.
Absolutely. I mean, I think getting a new player might be a little more complicated when they're not used to wargaming in general. But once I got used to it, after about 5 games, I love it. For me, if anyone's ever interested in like how do you get a game going faster, pre-plan. Like if you're going to be playing on a Sunday, like next Sunday, go ahead and choose the mission. Like choose all the different stuff. Choose your army list that you're playing. So that you're familiar with it. That way you don't spend as much time going through the rule book on what missions do I pick, what secondary missions do I do, because that'll eat up. I'll eat up 45 minutes.
You know, and I had thought about recently about coming up with just like getting back to 40K, they have their first strike box, which is just very easy, very fast, gets people into it. You learn a basic amount of the rules, and then you can expand with the actual rule book. I've actually thought about that's one of the ideas that we had with it was like what, Brotherhood versus Alien or something. The old box sets, they never actually happened. They're not on the docket anymore. Will they be back on the docket in the future? I don't know. But that was what those box sets were supposed to be. And I would still like to do a quick start set of rules that you can just jump in, like with one of the army boxes. You know, and those are, you know, miniatures are expensive, man.
Oh yeah, heck yeah.
Those boxes are great. You get, you get 2 basic small units, a hero and usually a vehicle. So, you know,
gosh, the capital one's massive.
Yeah.
Big Bob and 2 light infantry and 2 purple sharks.
Yeah.
It's great. No, that'd be great. I think that I've tried to simplify when I teach the game to people, and I think it really helps just to, you know the basics. When people who are already familiar with war games, they start immediately latching onto the special rules of Warzone, which is awesome. But I love, to me, the whole essence of the game is heroism. Like any good old model can be a hero. You know, you put them in heroic situations, crazy things start happening, because to me the whole thing, if you like compressed all of the actions into like seconds, it's like 20 seconds. Each round is like 5 seconds of play.
Oh yeah.
You know, like someone runs, they're shooting, they're throwing a grenade, you know, and the whole battle ends up being like a 30-second snapshot of a battle, which is awesome. Yeah,
and I love seeing stuff like that. People creating like this narrative from their games, like a lowly soldier who shot a Neff right in the head and got promoted to a sergeant, and then the next game they did something really cool as well, you know, and just going on from that. That's a really cool idea. Like I mentioned Doug earlier, his Major O'Neill apparently is a giant coward, so he's just kind of run with that, and that's become a narrative character for him. And this was just some guy who started, I think, as a chasseur. And, you know, so now he's just through whatever, kind of like Commissar Kane, I think, if you're familiar with that guy. Yeah, something like that.
I love Commissar Kane's the ones that's on top of the tank saying, point me to them, right?
Yeah, except he's a giant coward who does not like to do work but inevitably ends up in the middle of stuff and becomes a hero just because he happens to be right there.
Yep, the reluctant hero stereotype, right? That's awesome. Awesome. Well, Marshall, thank you so much for joining me today. It was great interviewing you. Very insightful.
Thanks for having me.
It was awesome. And if y'all are looking for more information on Warzone, and if you don't know, you can visit Protos Games as well. Giga-Bites, we have a lot of stuff on it. I've done several videos, lots of battle reports on our YouTube channel, Giga-Bites TV. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to the future of the game. It's going to be awesome. It's a little slower paced than things like GW just because of the nature of a small company, and also doing volunteer work like what you're doing. But it's always appreciated. So thanks, Marshall.
Thanks.
All right. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.